Dear Journal, I admit it, I am smitten, fully 100% heart racing in my chest, in love with my infant daughter. From the first moment I saw her small round head coming towards me as the midwife transferred her from inside of me to my waiting arms, I knew a love affair had begun that would rival that of Cleopatra and Antony, Bogey and McCall, Angelina and Brad. Superman would have nothing on me if anyone tried to harm her. Tall buildings, not a problem. Speeding trains, no sweat. And a different preschool teacher, out of my way. A broken heart? Oh, where is he? I have so much love inside my chest, I almost can't breathe.
I'm the pastor of a fairly large and progressive church, and I like to think of myself as a fairly politically correct and culturally sensitive kind of guy. I actually have many, many wonderful female colleagues, and I actually recently led a Bible study class on Jesus the Feminist. But last Sunday, after the sermon, little Nora Blakely, who I just baptized the Sunday before, started fussing. So Sarah, her mother, who was sitting right in the middle of the very front pew, started nursing little Nora. Now, normally I wouldn't think anything of such an event, but after the service, during coffee hour, my wife, Natea, approached me and said, "Honey, you realize during the Lord's Prayer when you're supposed to say, 'Give us this day our daily bread,' you said, 'Give us this day our daily breast'?" Well, so much for my PC powers of concentration.
July 30th. Dear Journal, breastfeeding has become a religious experience. There is nothing that can ground my attention quicker than being connected physically and emotionally to my black-haired daughter. I cherish the warmth that starts at my toes and works its way up my body as I watch her latch onto my nipple with the suction strength of a commercial vacuum. For a while, this joy was accompanied by electrifying pain, but thankfully that's just a memory now, the sharp corners of which have been worn by the waves of love that caress it. My daughter is a few months old now, and my most beloved time is when she pauses, mid-suckle, looks up at me and smiles. She pauses for several heartbeats, pulling back as she smiles and almost, but not quite, breaking the suction. A small dribble of milk always runs down my breast. Then, as if she had been reassured by my face, as I had been moved by hers, she continues feeding, her free hand always patting the breast she's connected with.
All the books said breastfeed, so I did. But my daughter was unfortunately so finicky that even after I returned to work, when she was just under 6 months old, she refused to eat anything but the real thing. In a level of stubbornness that continues to this day, she preferred to starve herself rather than accept even my own milk from a bottle. I was a seasonal park ranger at Mesa Verde National Park. We'd get a half hour for lunch. So I'd race home, feed her, and then go back to leading tours for the afternoon. I added it up, and I breastfed my 3 kids for 7.5 years. Breastfeeding is A, convenient, but B, boring. They never mention the boring part. once. I pulled into the small town in Colorado to feed one of my babies. The streets were tree-lined and quiet, but visitors were so infrequent that people came popping out of their houses up and down the street to check to make sure I was all right, making it a less than ideal place to breastfeed an infant. Another time, I was driving down the mountain road from my workplace, running late, so I nursed whichever one it was as I drove. This is definitely not recommended. In my life, breasts have had several meanings. They've been annoying and in the way when I'd rather go shirtless or exercise. They've been areas of interest for horny boys and men. They provided nutrition for my kids. Mostly, they're an annoyance.
October 29th. Dear Journal, 3 weeks ago, I found a lump in my left breast. They told me I had a milk duct infection and that I'll have to stop breastfeeding for a week while I take some antibiotics. They told me I could still use a breast pump to continue milk production, but that my daughter would need to drink formula during this time and for a bit afterwards so the drug left my system. I worried incessantly about how this would affect her. Would her tummy be able to handle this abrupt switch? Would she feel betrayed by our change and our ritual? Or once we stopped breastfeeding, if she would no longer be interested again? My heart broke, but there really didn't seem to be any way around it.
I'm a postpartum nurse. I spend many, many hours in the company of other women's breasts. Sometimes they behave themselves quite nicely, producing the proper amount of milk at the proper time. Sometimes they behave quite badly, producing way too much milk, blowing up like big balloons at a birthday party, or equally as bad, refusing to produce a single drop of the precious fluid, despite hours of pumping and pleading. You know, I have seen a few women with accessory nipples, like under their armpits, which drip milk when they're feeding their babies. That is quite a sight. One of the most amazing sights I ever saw was when this very large woman gave birth to these beautiful twins. Her breasts were the size of large watermelons to begin with, but throwing enough milk for 2 babies? I remember one morning, she had her absolutely huge breasts completely uncovered, with a tiny little baby in a bright yellow hat at the end of each one. These babies were hardly the size of her nipples. It was an arresting sight. But I will say that mom and babies were completely unaware of that sight they posed. They were all in breastfeeding heaven.